Greetings everybody. Just another video here. It's actually kind of a remake, if you want to consider it that. The original is quite a bit inaccurate now, since I have recently acquired some new additions to this collection, so I figured I'd remake the evolution of the PlayStation controller. So let's get to it. Here we have the original PlayStation controller, no sticks, no nothing. There's actually a version of this that was originally released in Japan with the very first release of the original PlayStation, which is basically just a slightly smaller version. I think the grips are slightly smaller, but I haven't yet found one of those. They're pretty hard to come by around here. I don't know how easy this thing can focus, if it can focus at all. Let's try. There it goes. Yeah, model number on this one, SCPH-10520, which everybody should be familiar with. Next in line we have the dual analog, which is not a dual shock. That's this one. This one was released a few months before the dual shock, and is actually the first dual analog control stick controller for the PlayStation. Now, let's see if I can get this thing to focus on here. Yeah, SCPH-10520 is the model number on this one. There are some key differences between this and the other controllers. I went into a lot more detail on my other video. If you want to check that one out, it'll explain it better. But the gist of it is the grips are substantially longer on here. The control sticks themselves are concave. They are not mushroom shaped, and they're not rubberized either. And the analog mode supports compatibility with Sony's flight stick controller, which is this massive freaking, like, almost pilot-like thing. But yeah, and the analog button, if you hit it once, it goes red. If you hit it again on this controller, it goes green, to support that controller. But that's basically it. And then next in line we have the original DualShock, which is basically the controller everyone is now familiar with. It didn't have DualShock written up here, but the control sticks are now rubberized and they look like a mushroom. And I don't remember the model number offhand. SCPH-120. So that's that one. This one did have rumble, by the way, and this one doesn't. So it's the Japanese version does, but I don't have the Japanese version. It's the North American version. Yay. Now this one is just a DualShock 1. Still nothing written up here. The only difference in this one is, since it was re-released with the Slim PlayStation, or the PS1, they changed the shape of the plug to a more rounded version compared to this, which is square. But that's the only real difference other than the color. So that's it for that one. Next in line we have the DualShock 2, originally released with the PlayStation 2. Now this one does have DualShock 2 written there, and everything's pretty much the same as the previous DualShock. The buttons are now analog as well, which means they're pressure sensitive, so if you really hammer on a button, it'll actually make a difference in the game. These ones, and a little hard to make out, but the model on this one is SCPH-10010 or 110, depending on how you look at it. But that is the most popular controller that everyone is familiar with. Now, this one I just recently acquired is the forgotten controller that nobody remembers was even made. It's a PlayStation 2 controller with no rumble. This was released around the time when Sony was undergoing their lovely little lawsuit regarding the rumble motors. So, this one, you can see no DualShock 2 written there. It is extremely light because there's no rumble motors in here. And to prove that this is an actual separate controller, not just one of the other ones with no rumble motors in it, Sony actually went ahead and gave it its own model number. You can see right there, SCPH-10520. If you try to look that up online, you will find hardly anything. Same thing I went through when I tried to research this damn thing. But it does exist, and I was lucky enough to find one of these. So yeah, that's like probably one of the rarest PlayStation controllers that, to me, like, aside from all the funky third-party controllers or different whatever, but as far as DualShock controllers in this type of style, that's probably the rarest one. And next in line, we move on to PlayStation 3. Now, since Sony was still in the middle of their lawsuit business, the original PlayStation 3 only got the 6-axis controller, which also does not have any rumble. And Sony liked to come up with funky excuses to explain why there was no rumble, claiming that rumble was so last gen. Yeah, bull. But yeah, it's pretty much just like the other DualShocks, just it's now wireless. It has the player selector things there, and the analog button is now the PlayStation button. Let's see what the model number is on here. There, SCPH-10520. And then, actually, that wasn't the model number. That model number is up here. SCPH-10520. Yay. I get confused easily. So, yeah. So that's the original PlayStation 3 controller, just 6-axis. And then, after they got the lawsuit crap figured out, guess what happened? DualShock 3 with 6-axis in there. So, that's pretty much the gist of Sony's idea that Rumble was so last gen, and then yeah, they end up releasing a Rumble controller again. Brilliant move. But model number on this one, CCHZC2U. So one thing that I noticed that I didn't really know before is that the original 6-axis is actually somewhat transparent. It's going to be hard to see through the camera here, but if you have one of these and take a close look at it compared to one of the DualShock 3s, the plastic casing is actually a little bit transparent, so you can see the stuff inside, while the DualShock 3 is pretty much opaque. But yeah, that's PlayStation controller evolution, going all the way back from the original PS1 through the many versions that the PS1 had, going to the PS2 and then PS3. And of course PS4 is going to have its own DualShock 4, etc., with a whole bunch of other stuff. Hopefully they don't bugger it up as much as they did with these, with the rumble, no rumble. So there you have it. My other video goes into a little more detail with some of the finer differences between controllers, so if you're interested, feel free to check that one out. I just figured I would make this to showcase the more complete line of controllers that I now have. So there you go. Thanks for watching.